Let's talk menopause. First of all, let's go with the word menopause because it's used inaccurately, potentially as an umbrella term, and this creates a lot of confusion. Technically speaking, from a typical perspective, and I'm choosing my words carefully, I will explain in the show notes. Menopause is when a female has not experienced a menstrual cycle for 12 consecutive months as a result of ovarian aging, which is part of a much bigger conversation between the ovaries and the brain. And a menstrual cycle stops way before death. This is very unusual. There are only 4 species on the planet that this happens to: humans and 3 types of whale. Now, menopause is not a bunch of symptoms. Same topic, different subject. Talk about that later in other videos. And yes, menopause can involve more than the ovaries and the brain. But primarily, this is the focal point of ovarian aging from the day periods start to the day periods stop. It's a continuum. The ovaries have this pre-programmed 40-year typically ovarian activity timeline. There are a couple of timestamps along the way, along this continuum. So puberty is when periods start, when the ovaries burst into the scene, literally releasing eggs on a regular basis, or what's called an infradian rhythm. And that, for someone who menstruates, is like a heartbeat. All right, it needs to be viewed as the 5th vital sign. These hormones that are released from the ovaries are collectively called sex hormones. They do not just circulate between the ovaries and the uterus, they circulate the entire body. And it's this conversation between the ovaries and the brain. And they are fundamental to health of every single menstruator, every single day of their lives. And this is what we call menstrual health. The next timestamp that we're now becoming familiar with, although this term has actually been defined over 2 decades ago, and that is perimenopause. And this is when the ovarian activity is what we would call accelerated aging. We have accelerated ovarian aging. Part of this 40-year timeline approximately. And this is when the activity is shifting in a haphazard way between ovulatory and anovulatory cycles. But we're moving along this one-way continuum from the day period start to the day period stop. Perimenopause is the time frame of ovarian aging that's accelerated towards this point. We may not notice it in the very beginning, but as it proceeds closer to the point of stopping, then that is when we might notice it more. And this is where the symptoms come in, which I'll talk about in another video. So we're moving along this continuum. The ovarian activity is shifting. It's having an impact on our whole body. Our whole physiology is changing. But it starts from the day our periods start. So technically, from the day you start your periods to the day you stop, you are menopausing to a greater or lesser extent.